Korea has been categorized by the UN as a developing nation, and that kind of helps it avoid. You really think that that's fair? I consider South Korea a pretty developed country myself. You know, how long are they going to be able to sort of hide behind that categorization, and do you think it fits with Korea now not to be considered and not to be labeled a fully developed modern nation?
No.
Dr. Kim?
No, I don't think so.
The parliamentary opposition is trying to overturn the law that opened up TV broadcasting to newspapers on constitutional grounds. So we'll have to see whether South Korea dailies can maintain the political clout and muster the money they'll need to hit the screen. Frank Smith, Press TV, Seoul. As some 500 laid-off workers spent their 73rd day holed up inside a South Korean carmaker, their wives and supporters battled riot police outside the company gates. Talks between SsangYong Motor and its employees' union broke down Sunday. SsangYong Motors has said it has lost near $300 million due to the laid-off workers' sit-in. The troubled carmaker faces mushrooming debts as creditors plan to file bankruptcy papers later this week. Meanwhile, today the vice president of the Democratic Labour Party, party aides, and several activists were arrested in scuffles outside the plant. Another senior labor lawmaker is entering the 13th day of a hunger strike. South Korea mourned Kim Dae-jung, the former president who led the nation to democracy. Kim presided over the country from 1998 to 2003, initiating the first summit between North and South Korea's leaders, a feat which won him the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000. And his death seems to be having a similarly positive effect, as it resulted in an unlikely meeting of the conservative current South Korean leader Lee Myung-bak and a North Korean delegation. The North envoys delivered a verbal message to President Lee, expressing the desire for improved relations. The Lee administration has taken a hard line with Pyongyang. Kim Dae-jung battled South Korea's authoritarian leaders for decades, surviving repeated assassination attempts and a scheduled execution in a storied political career. In his handwritten diary, released this week, the former president spoke highly of his First Lady, who asked mourners to follow Kim's example. Hundreds of thousands across the capital honored their former president. On Saturday, the North Korean delegation paid their respects, laying a wreath from leader Kim Jong-il. Throughout his life, Kim Dae-jung battled seemingly insurmountable obstacles to bring North and South Korea closer. And with the first meetings of officials of these divided states in nearly 2 years, in his passing, the former South Korean president has succeeded once again, if only for a day. Frank Smith, Press TV, Seoul. South Korea's major broadcasters are on strike over government legislation that would relax restrictions on media ownership. The country's political left suggests the legislation will give the three major newspapers, which they consider to favor corporations and the government, a dominant position. But considering the evolution of the way people receive their news and the multitude of players in media, the ruling party believes diverse perspectives. The country's broadcasting union and labor leaders think the move will neglect media's role of serving the public good. Media bias is an issue around the world as convergence in technology is coupled with the advantages offered by economies of scale. In South Korea, the battle for an independent media is at the forefront of this global debate. Following former South Korean leader Roh Moo-hyun's suicide, liberal forces have increased attacks on the conservative Lee Myung-bak government. Civil groups, academics, and religious figures have stepped forward.
The Lee administration is turning Korean democracy back to the time of dictatorship. Rights written in the Constitution, such as freedom of speech, publishing, and assembly, are oppressed by force under the name of establishing rule of law. Furthermore, the humiliating investigation by the prosecution has led to the former president's tragic death.
Before he took his life, No and his family were under investigation for bribery. The opposition charges the probe was politically motivated, a claim refuted by conservatives.
I don't think President Lee Myung-bak had anything to do with No Mu-yeon's death, and these gatherings by opposition parties are not right.
Liberals also complain the government is restricting the right to public assembly. No's first shrine was destroyed by police before authorized mourning sites were established. Analysts caution Liberals against using the former president's suicide for political gain.
The death of former President Roh Moo-hyun is a national tragedy, and nobody, whether it's the ruling party or the opposition, should exploit his very unfortunate death.
Last year's massive anti-U.S. beef demonstrations went on for months. There was some violence and area businesses suffered, which is something the government doesn't want to see repeated.
So they have said we are for peaceful demonstrations, we are for peaceful gatherings, but not at the expense of everyday livelihood of our citizens.
June 10th marks the 22nd anniversary of the pro-democracy movement. President Lee said that illegality and violence were distorting the country's hard-won democracy, seeking to limit access to Seoul's main plaza. But opposition politicians occupied the square, airing their grievances.
Democracy is falling down, and especially people's livelihoods are also falling down. And also, North and South relations is falling down. What we are asking is change.
There have been calls for South Korea's current president to apologize for its previous leader's suicide. And Lee's own party is debating a cabinet shakeup as polls say the public is disillusioned with his leadership. Former President Roh Moo-hyun's death has further polarized South Korean politics. By ignoring government warnings and gathering in this square, people sought to remind the Lee administration the liberal left demands its voice. Frank Smith, Press TV, Seoul.